beautiful friends. It's Monica. How are you? I'm just getting everything set up. I was running around and getting things ready, and pardon me, got a frog in my throat already. And I was just pulling some buns out of the oven for supper. So yeah, the kids were excited. We were having hot dogs, but I had to make the buns. So they've just come out of the oven, and then we can have our supper after we're done tonight. So I'm just getting my tablet organized here so I can see who's all is watching and whether you're creating along if you have any questions. So what we're making tonight is a fun little Christmas ornament that I created. I'm participating in an ornaments swap with some consultants, and so I had this brainwave the other night, and I thought, oh, I wonder if, and fun things can happen when you say I wonder if. And so I created this, and it's like a little lantern. You can hang it on your tree. And, you know, if you poked a couple of the Christmas lights inside of it, it would have a nice glow to it. And so this outside frame was created with white daisy cardstock. And then the inside is this vellum that I did heat embossing with gold embossing powder. And so I am going to show you how I created this. It has 4 sides and then vellum inside all the way around. One of the very cool benefits of this whole thing is that right now we can't go and visit friends and share ornaments. And so this ornament collapses completely flat, and it ends up being 4 inches by 5 inches, which will fit into one of our card envelopes. And then when your receiver gets it, they just pop it open and it's ready to go on their tree. And I thought that's really cool because we can mail it even though we can't necessarily go and visit. So let's get started. I'm going to set that aside. The first thing we want to do is to make the frame, to make this outside frame. And so I used this multi-square window thin cut to do that. And it is not in the package. It's beside the package. So it cuts out this outside frame and then all these little inside bits, and it does stitching in between, which is kind of fun. And one thing I noticed, and my kids will probably notice, is it kind of, because I used blue, we have Doctor Who fans in my house, and so they're going to think it looks a bit like the TARDIS, but you know, if you really tried, you could probably make it look a bit more accurately like a TARDIS. Anyway, so we're going to do something a little bit different with this thin cut though, because normally you would cut it, you know, you'd put it on your paper and you would cut, and then you would end up with a piece that's shaped like this. However, we want a piece that's twice as long so that we can get all 4 sides as one whole piece, and then we only have one join. Okay, so I'm going to show you the trick to doing that. First thing you're going to need is a piece of ugly washi tape that you don't care anything about. That's the best kind of washi tape for this task. And one thing that you want to do is, if you take your sleeve or your pant leg and just gather up a bit of lint, that takes some of the tack off of your washi tape so that it doesn't rip your paper. Or if you have the kind of washi tape that's just pretty pathetic to begin with and it doesn't have much stick anyway, then that's the kind you use for this job. So I'm just going to tack that down with the washi tape. And I'm going to run it through my die cut machine. But the trick is we don't want it to cut when it gets to the end, because we want to be able to make two. So what we're going to do is, when you have your plates for whatever machine you have, you want to line it up so that the end of the plate ends before the end of the die, so that that last cut bar doesn't get pinched when it goes through your machine. And I'm not showing you my machine because it's not one that we sell. It's a really old one, as you can tell from my plates. It's very well worn, and it will make some weird noises when it goes through the machine. So see how that last bit of the die is still overhanging. So it's not, fingers crossed, going to cut when I run it through. So here we go. Yeah, like I said, it makes some fun noises. Okay. So now we're going to get all the little inside bits. There we are. You can save those, use them for something fun. But as you can see, the outside cut, but it did not slice when it got to the end. And so now the task is to line it up again, but overhang it so that it's not going to cut. And it may actually be easier to do it this way. So you want to line it up right on the edge there. So that it will cut from one to the other. But then when we put it in the machine, we're going to do the same thing that we did before. We're going to slide it to the end of the plate and pinch it in between, but we're going to leave that last little bit hanging over so that we don't cut it. Okay? Fingers crossed again. Hello, Ina. How are you tonight? We were talking not too long ago, so I hope you're still doing good. All right. So, moment of truth. Let's see if it did what we wanted. Take our little bits out. Take our washi tape off. Ah, it worked. Look at that. We got all our nice little bits. So now we have a double long length. We just grab our scissors and trim that little bit there. This is also fun if you want to make a window frame to go down the side of a scrapbook page. So you need it nice and long. Let me just get this out of the way. We're all done with the die cutter. Get rid of some of these little bits here. Okay, so there we go. We've got our thing all cut out, and our next step now is to add some color to it. And I did mine in blue because I like the blue with the gold embossing. So I'm bringing in my Sapphire exclusive ink. It's not anything different. It's not an oxide. It's just our regular Sapphire exclusive ink. And I'm using it with this blending tool and foam. And this you really don't have to be that careful with. I've protected my table with the all-purpose mat so that I don't get ink on my table. But if you've done ink blending before, you know it's always a little bit tedious, you know, to make sure it's perfect. But this, I think, because we're kind of creating a little lantern, it can look kind of rustic. And so we're just going to go around and cover all of the white cardstock to give it some color. You make some parts darker, some parts lighter. And it's really not difficult. The only thing you have to be a bit careful of is that you don't buckle it. If you're pushing too hard on your foam, you might snag your cardstock. But if you just go along, keep moving all the way down, adding ink as you go. Now this all-purpose mat is getting ink on it. So if you did not want to waste that ink, because why waste ink, you could have an extra piece of cardstock on hand and a little water mister, and you could spray it and then dip your cardstock in it and pick that color up and use that for a background of another thing. But I'm not going to do that tonight. I'm just going to wipe it up with my stamp chamois, and that cleans it up nice. Bring that back in. So now we've got this all covered. We need to do some scoring on it because we want to be able to fold all the sides and make it nice and crisp. So in between, we've got guides because of the stitch lines. So we're going to go 2 squares over, and we're going to make a score line right along where the stitching is, and then go another 2 squares over, and this one has no stitching, so kind of line up where the middle is and give it a score. 2 squares over. The reason that one didn't have the stitching is that's where we joined our die together. And then the last one here, we also need to score it, because even though that's going to be our join, it's also going to need to be a corner. And that will make life much easier if we score it. And we're going to go back. I'm going to turn it around. We're going to go back and do this first bar as well, right in the middle, or as close to the middle as you can get. Okay. And then to make our life a little simpler, we're going to flip it over, and we're going to come to this first score line. And this is how I did it the other night. I pushed my ruler up to where the score line was, and I had my bone folder underneath it. And then I just lifted, because that's such a tiny little paper right there. It can be a little bit difficult. And then push it along the joints first, and then you can fold it and get a nice edge. Okay, and we'll kind of open that up a little bit. And then we're going to go to this next one that we scored. And we're going to fold it up. Just use the edge of your ruler and your bone folder to push against each other. And again, go to where the horizontal bars are first, because that gives you a little bit more paper to push against. Increase it there. And we'll turn it around. Kind of work our way out. So line it up with the score line. Did that one okay? Sometimes you got to double check. All right, push it down where the horizontals are. Give it a score. And the better job you do scoring now will make it easier to collapse it if you're going to mail it. If you're just using it for your own home, it still is nice to be able to collapse it, because when you put your decorations away and you want to save it for another year, you can just put it flat, put it in a Ziploc, and your whole collection of little lanterns is all ready to go next year. Dust-free and safe and sound. They won't get crushed because they're already flat. And that's that one. We have one more, just this little one on the end. So again, I'm going to stick my bone folder under there first and move my ruler out to the score line, and then just turn up that last little bit. If you tried doing that by hand, it would be kind of a pain. But with the ruler and the bone folder, it helps because it's such a tiny little fold. Okay, so that is our frame. Now, if you're worried about any of that ink coming off, you can take your heat tool and just go over it a little bit. It really should not come off, but you know, just to be on the safe side, you can always do this. We're going to use our heat tool later anyway for the embossing, so we've got it handy. Okay, and we'll set that aside. So now the next part that we want to make is this embossed vellum. And I used gold embossing powder for that. And the flowers, because I have a flower pattern in there, is actually from the December stamp of the month. So this will be available starting December the 1st until the end of December. And it's really pretty. It says, "Happiness never grows old." And it's got these beautiful flowers and leaves and some little dots. And it says, "Be your own kind of beautiful. Happiness never grows old. A thankful heart blooms year-round." And I think those are lovely sentiments. But today we're just using the flowers. And I want to use an assortment of flowers. So I am going to bring out an assortment of blocks so that we have them all ready. And we can get all our stamping done. When you're removing stamps from the carrier sheet, you want to take your time because they do stick to things really well. And then put it down on your mat and let it relax. And then pick it up with your stamp block. Now, if these are new and you haven't used them yet, or you haven't used them for a while, you can always season them so that the ink, it picks up the ink better. If it's brand new, there may be, you know, sort of factory finish on it. And so just running it over your hand eliminates that. And then let's get another one. We'll get this other big cluster. So you just take your time. There's nothing worse than having stamps that are such lovely quality and that stick so nicely, and then you pull too fast and you damage it. So again, you can season it. Now I have used these before, so it's not really necessary. But we'll do it anyway. And then I'm going to do this single flower as well, because sometimes when you're doing all over stamping, which is what we're going to do, it helps. And this little set of 3 leaves as well. It helps to have things of different sizes. So as you can see, we've got large and another large, but different shape. And then we have sort of a mid to small and then a small one as well. So those are the ones that we're going to use. Just put that out of the way. And this is the vellum that I've cut. Now, because our finished lantern is 4 inches tall and it's 10 inches all the way around, I have cut a 4 by 10 piece of vellum, just like that. And we're going to do the stamping now, and then we'll cut it to fit each side afterwards. Okay? So one of the best surfaces for stamping on is the opposite side of your Versamat, which has this nice foam. It works really well. And I'm going to put this paper underneath just in because I'm going to stamp right to the edges. So by putting that paper down, it keeps the Versamark ink from getting on the back of my Versamat. So this is Versamark, and this is what you use when you're doing heat embossing because it makes the powder stick. It's pretty much clear. You can see a bit of shine, so you know where you've stamped, but you can't really see much until you get the embossing powder on there. Step number 1 is to use an anti-static pouch. Just tap it all over, and you'll see, if I was using black, that there's actually a bit of dusty powder that comes out of this. And what that does, why it's called anti-static, is that it takes the static charge out of it. Because the embossing powder is basically really fine plastic, you and I both know that fine plastic will stick to everything. And I mean everything. It'll be on your hands, it'll be on your clothes, it'll be on everything. So by using the anti-static pouch and going over, then your embossing powder will only stick where the ink goes, which is what we want. So let's start with the biggest stamp, and we'll load it up with the Versamark ink. And we're just going to do all over stamping. So you just pick random places to stamp, and you probably will not be able to see what I have stamped until I get the embossing powder on there. That's just the nature of it. And you notice that I'm going just a little bit over the edge, which is why we put that extra paper there. And now I'm switching to this other large stamp. And we'll stamp a few times with that one, going in between. And because of the lights above me, I can see the shine where I'm stamping, even if you can't. So when you're doing all over stamping, you want to turn your stamp pads around, or your stamps around, so that you're not stamping in the same position every time. Now we'll bring in this single flower. Give him a stamp up there. And we want fairly decent coverage because we want the design to have an effect on the lantern that we're making. We want it to show through all the little squares. I'm going to come back in with this big one again. And you want to work fairly quickly. I am kind of, telling you what I'm doing as I'm going, but you don't want to wait too long because then your ink starts to dry and the embossing powder won't stick as well. So I'm going to do a few leaves. Get those on there. And then we'll be done. And we'll move on to the embossing powder. Okay, so that's that. I'll clean those off later. We bring in the embossing powder, and just to be aware, it's going to look like I'm using every bit of the embossing powder, and that's okay because it goes back in the jar. And this is also another good reason to have the extra paper underneath to catch all the embossing powder. It's just like you would do back in the day with the glue and the glitter. Okay, and then you can give it a bit of a tap, and there you can see where the embossing powder is stuck. If you notice any large areas where you could add more embossing, then by all means go ahead and stamp it again and then powder it again, or do the heat first and then go back. It's totally all right to go over it a few times. And we're just going to dump that back into the jar and put the lid on it because you never want to spill that. That's always not a fun show. Hi, Elizabeth. Nice to see you tonight. And Carmen. Welcome, ladies. So now I'm going to grab my heat tool. And one thing to do, you're going to warm up your heat tool, and as it's warming you want to lift whatever you're heat embossing up off of your surface, because for one thing you don't want to damage your work surface, and the heat will work better It will be more effective when it's up in the air. So as you emboss, it will change from sort of a dry metallic-y to a very shiny metallic-y. And you're just going to hold your heat tool just about 1.5 inches off of your surface. Obviously you're not going to put your hand too close to the heat tool either. Always keep it kind of tipped away from your hand, because there's no need to melt your fingers. It does get quite warm. You can also do it from behind if you're concerned that, I don't know if you can see it changing there. If you're concerned that it's going to blow your embossing powder, I've never had it do that. But you can heat from behind. This is so big and floppy. Alright. So let's keep going. And you just work your way along. Just got a little bit more on that one. And you will see the change. Let me just stop here and see if I can show you. So this is sort of the dividing line. This has been embossed and this is waiting to be embossed. So I don't know if you can see that there in the light. That one looks very dry and dark and the other one looks bright and shiny. So as you work your way along, you can see that change happening. It's always very satisfying, as my daughter would say. Has anybody that's watching, have you done heat embossing before? My daughter loves watching when I do this. She just gives her all the thrills. Ooh, it's shiny. And we're just about done. And pretty much as soon as it's done, it's, you know, it's dry. You can do whatever you want with it. So there we go. We finished that all. So now it's all shiny. And I'm just going to wipe off my stamps quickly, because I don't want that ink to sit there for a long, long time. Our stamp chamois are nice for cleaning the stamps. It does a really good job, and all you do is get them wet in water. So they're actually a pretty good size. They do get stained up because, you know, you're putting ink on it. But what I do is I just fold it into quarters, so it's a little bit more manageable. You just run it under the water and it softens it up. And then when you're all done, you just let it dry out, open it up, let it dry out, and then it's ready and waiting to go the next time. It gets really crispy when it's dry, so you'll know that it's dry and safe to put away so it doesn't get nasty or anything. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to cut this to fit inside of each of the sides. So these sides are 4 inches by 2.5 inches, and we've already got our 4 inches here. So I'm going to cut these in 2.5 inch pieces. Just line it up with 2.5, and that's 1, and 2.5 again, that's 2. And if you're, if you're a bit like me, you'll line them up on the side here and just confirm that that's 2.5, so that it the pattern will match when you put it on. Now, when I did this yesterday, I actually put the vellum on after I had made it into a square, and I thought, you know, that was really silly because it would be so much easier if it was flat. So now you're just going to add a very tiny bit of glue. You're going to add it along the outside, and you're going to add a bit along these cross pieces. And then you're going to put the vellum face down. So the embossed side is going to go towards the outside so that it looks nice and pretty on your finished project. So there's one, and then we're going to add more glue. You could use tape runner for this, but I find that this is easy enough and you don't have to run the risk of the tape not quite lined up. You don't want to get glue on the vellum that's in between the little windows so much, because glue kind of goes funky on vellum. You'll see the splotches, especially if you put lights behind it. All right, I'm gluing this next one. Yeah, so as I was saying, if you were making a, let me see, what did I do? I think I turned it around. Oh, well, good enough. If you were making a scrapbook page with this multi-square window thin cut, that would be a really cool way to make a border down the whole side of your page. By doing that technique where we had it hanging over the edge of the die cut platform, the die platform. And the last one. And there we go. And then the last thing to do is to join the two. Now, because this folds flat, that's easy enough to do. We're just going to put some glue on here. And then we're going to fold this side in. And we're going to fold this side in on top of it. And glue them together. So much easier to glue things flat than up in the air. And then open it up, because you want to make sure that your glue hasn't gone all over and stuck everything together. So don't leave it laying flat until you know everything's stuck down good. Okay? So we'll give that a few seconds. Clean up some glue. Now the last thing we need to do is we need a way to hang it. So I use just this little hole punch that I have. And I just pick two sides. And you want to punch a hole just right here in this connector on one of the flat sides. Give it a punch. And this is a really tiny hole punch. I don't know if you can see it there. But it makes a really tiny hole. It's not the same size. And then we go to the opposite side. And we'll punch another hole. Just like that. And then I've got this sapphire colored embellishing thread, which is the same color as the ink we used. So that's nice. And when it comes off these little paper spools, it kind of, it's kind of all kinky. So if you take, like you would with curling ribbon and kind of run it along there, it relieves some of that kink. But when it's hanging on your tree, it will sort itself out. And then all I did was I just threaded it through, straight through the inside, and then brought it up, decided how much I needed. Give it a little snip with my non-stick micro tip scissors. Those, by the way, are the best scissors ever. I've had mine for years and years and years. And adhesive doesn't stick to them. And they have such a fine point on them if you like cutting, fussy cutting things. They're fabulous. They're like my favorite scissors. I now have an extra set just on hand in case something ever happens to these. I haven't opened the package yet, but I have them just in case. I think I've had these probably 15 years, and they're still sharp and wonderful. Anyway, so there we have it. That's our nice little ornament to hang on the tree. And as I say, you can fold it down flat and put it in the envelope. So let's bring in an envelope so you can see. So this is the size of the cards that Close to My Heart carries, and they're 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So this is the one I made the other day, and if you compare, it's just a little bit smaller. So you can put this inside of a Christmas card, and put it in the envelope and mail it, and then the recipient has a beautiful ornament to hang on their tree, just like that. So I think that's really cool. Now, last week, I did a scrapbooking page, and I used these pretty flowers. And I had a few extra stamped images. And so my daughter was in here the other day, Julia, she's 10, and she was watching a video with me. And so I handed her my shimmer brushes and said, here, you finished coloring those. So she finished it up, and then I made a card out of it. And so this card was the giveaway for tonight. And so we had a couple people that had posted a comment. And so I drew names. And so Leanne Crawford, you are the lucky winner of this card. Be strong and courageous. And this is a lovely stamp set that's available right now. It's called Trust in the Lord. So that's nice. And I did wood grain embossed white daisy panel on the back side. I don't know if you can see it, but there's wood grain there. And then the shimmer brushes. And this, we actually used, some of them are clear shimmer brush, and we used New England Ivy ink. We dipped it in the ink and brushed it on, and other ones were done with the julep shimmer brush. And then there's ballerina shimmer brush on the little berries in the centers of the flowers. So Leanne Crawford, congratulations. I'll be sending that out to you. And thank you for joining me tonight and seeing how we made these. If you're interested in getting one of these multi-square thin cuts for yourself, they're available on my website. They come on this nice magnetic sheet, so you can keep track of them. So that's the multi-square thin cut. And the stamp that we used, once again, is the Happiness Never Grows Old stamp set. And that is the stamp of the month for the month of December. And so if you are shopping online and you purchase $60 worth of things, you can get this stamp set, which is normally about $24. You can get it for $6 when you make a $60 purchase. Or if you become a VIP member and you make a purchase of $60, you get this stamp set for free during the month of December. And right now there's a special promotion for the VIP customers as well. So you sign up, and it's $45 to sign up for the whole year. And then immediately you get $30 back in credit on your account to spend on your next order. And you earn 15% credit for every purchase that you make. And it's pretty much everything that we sell. There's just a few exceptions, like the subscriptions. Obviously, renewals, you can't earn 15% on that. But pretty much everything else that's on the website or in the catalog, you earn that 15% all year long, which is awesome. If I wasn't already a maker, I would totally sign up as a VIP because it's a fabulous thing. Plus, there's incentives and extra little things that only the VIPs get to do. So anyway, thanks for joining me. I hope you have an artful day, and on Sunday I will be drawing for one of these ornaments. So come along and watch the live video on Sunday at 7. I'll make a post, so you have to put your name in for the draw. And yeah, that'll be awesome. All right. Talk to you later. Happy Artful Week. Bye.